What is going on, guys, and welcome back to the channel. 2024, it's almost done, but 2025, it's gonna be a great year for people who love medieval games. So today's video is gonna be the top 5 games that you need to play in 2025. I try to go with all games that I have a very high level of confidence you will be able to play this upcoming year. And before anyone says it in the comments, I say medieval, I mean like kind of Hollywood type medieval, because this is gaming after all, so not every game is going to be fully historically accurate in this list. Now, if you enjoy this video and you find it helpful at any time, be sure to subscribe, because this is the place to be for medieval gaming, and be sure to stay around to the end of the video because I have a few bonus games for you guys at the end. Alright, let's get into it. Now, if you're a fan of medieval games and you purchase one game this entire year, I think it should be this one, the first on the list, and that is Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. Now, this is the sequel to what I think is the best medieval game that ever released. Kingdom Come Deliverance, it's an open world medieval RPG game based on a historical medieval world, right? Jesus Christ be praised. Henry is going to be back and the adventure looks better than ever. I like to say this game is Skyrim for people who don't like magic. It is a massive open world where you can go out and you can do basically whatever you want. You want to be a blacksmith, go around making swords, you can do that. You want to go around robbing people, murdering people, be a complete villain, you can do that too. There's tons of different side quests and things that you can dive into, and there is also an amazing story in these games with some of the best cutscenes and cinematics you're ever going to see. The first game still looks absolutely amazing. I mean, years from when it released, and the second one, graphically, it's going to be an absolute masterpiece. This game is going to look really good. And of course, now we're not just here to quest and blacksmith, but the combat and the swordplay is very important to us. The original game, combat was very divisive. Everything looked extremely cinematic and beautiful. Every style, every strike, every combo in the game was based on actual Hema manuscripts from ancient medieval times. But the problem was it sometimes felt a little bit clunky to play, especially in group fights. Some people loved it, some people not so much. But in this second iteration, they've overhauled the combat to clean it up and make it a little bit more user-friendly and fun to play with. So I think this is going to be the top tier game for 2025, but remember, these open world games where you can spend hundreds of hours are not for everyone. So let's go into something next that's a little bit more bare bones, but very combat oriented and very fun, and that game is called Half Sword. Half Sword is a physics-based medieval sword fighting game. Basically, you go into an arena with one or multiple enemies, and you fight it out to see who survives. This seems pretty basic, but the fun is the physics in this game. Everything about the game is based on physics, so rather than have life bars, you have muscle, bone, organs, all of that stuff. You get hit in a vital part of the body, you are going to die. Now, if someone's wearing plate armor, you can hit them 20 times, but you're not going to get through their plate because of the physics. You have to find a gap in the armor, and everything you see on the screen is actually as it looks visually. So if there's a little gap under the armpit, you can stab someone there and kill them. If you go to block an enemy's sword, but that sword hits your hand, you're gonna lose your hand. The amount of different interactions you can get in these games are epic and make every single game feel different. Now, this is one of those games I think anyone who plays it will enjoy it. It can be ridiculous. You control your character with your mouse, which means there is a very high skill gap initially, so you might feel like you're out of control and just flailing around. But this is the type of game, if you dive into it, there is an incredible skill gap to it and a very high skill ceiling, and people do some incredible stuff in this game. It's free, and I think it's something to dive into, as we're going to see much further variations of this game over the next year as the devs update it very regularly. Now, sticking with the topic of physics-based medieval sword fighting games, there's another one called KinStrife, which is similar to Half Sword. Everything's physics-based with the armor. You control your weapon with the mouse. You're only going to hit what your weapon actually hits. If you want to block someone's weapon, you have to actually intercept it with your sword or your shield. But what's different about KinStrife is like a cross between Mount and Blade Bannerlord and Half Sword, in that it's a physics-based combat game that allows you to compete or participate in much larger scale fights and castle sieges. So you can have 30, 40 enemies against you and your 30 or 40 knights, and the amount of interactions you can see in the game are going to be absolutely insane. Just imagine if you knock one person down, they could topple into multiple teammates, and you could really change the flow of combat. I feel like the amount of interactions and crazy stuff you can see in this game, it's going to be times even 10 what you can see in Half Sword. And this is a game that we are going to get a playable version in some aspect in 2025, and I'm extremely excited for this game. The devs have actually been on my podcast, so I'll put a link down in the description below, but they were super engaging to talk to. Very exciting physics-based game coming up. Now, my next game, it looks pretty ridiculous, but it also looks like it's going to be a hell of a lot of fun, and that is called Kingmakers. And Kingmakers is going to be a game where you can hop into massive medieval battles with thousands of troops, but here is the kicker: you're a time traveler, you're going back in time to change the course of history, and you get to bring all your modern gear, weapons with you. So you can go into a medieval battle riding a motorcycle with a machine gun in one hand, chucking grenades in the other. It looks insanely hilarious and fun to play. I don't know how much longevity is going to be to this game, but it looks like it's going to be hilarious, and I think this is going to be the type of game where people, even casual gamers who aren't too into medieval stuff, will hop in this and have a blast for a couple of hours. It looks like it's going to be a hell of a lot of fun, and we're going to find out real soon. Now, the last game on my list, it looked so amazing that people were swearing for years that the trailers were fake, but now we've actually seen gameplay of it, and it's going to release in 2025, and that is Crimson Desert. Crimson Desert, it's more of a fantasy, open world, medieval RPG, kind of in the likes of, I would say, the Witcher games, but they meet with Dragon's Dogma. You're going to fight against monsters, you're going to fight against people, you're going to get around going to do whatever you want. It looks like there are a ton of unique play elements in this game, and graphically it is one of the best looking games I think we're going to see up until this point in time. It looks that good. So now this game is fantasy, so you're going to be riding on the back of dragons, you're going to be fighting 30 people at a time, you're going to be killing crazy monsters, but I think it's going to be something that a lot of people are really going to enjoy. I am going to pump the brakes a little bit on the hype. I know a lot of people are extremely excited for it, and I feel like the expectations are so high that I don't know if we're going to get the next Witcher game, but I think we're going to get at least an RPG that's similar to Dragon's Dogma in overall quality, where you're going to get a good game. If we get anything more than that, I mean, that would be epic too, but I think let's just taper down the expectations a little bit, but the game looks, it looks good. I think it's going to be a great game. Now let's get into my first bonus game, and this is going to be a revisit because I think it's going to be in 2025, time to go back to one of the best medieval games that released in 2024, and that is Manor Lords. Manor Lords at one point in time was the most wishlisted game on Steam. That's how excited for it people were. The attention to detail graphics in that game, it's a medieval real-time strategy game, just so good. One of the best looking games you're ever going to see. And when the game released, I feel like it did live up to the hype. This game was made by one person, and it is incredible the amount of detail in it. It's city management, tons of different systems. Everything is historically based to be as realistic as possible, and it also has battles kind of similar to how a Total War game would, but maybe just not on that same scale. But I will say they do look better than Total War's most recent games looked. Now, the problem here with Manor Lords is while it was received so well and people really did enjoy it, the replayability as an early access release, maybe by one person, wasn't really that high, as once you played the game 2 or 3 times, you kind of became an expert on it, and after a certain number of years in game, there just was nothing for you to do. And now 2024 was used to kind of squash out bugs, switch to Unreal Engine 5, and add a few new systems in the game. But I think 2025 is when it's really going to start to put itself together as a masterpiece, as we already have some new systems like fishing and butchers, and we're going to get lakes, rivers, and we're going to get a bunch of new maps this year, which can drastically change how your playing experience is going to be, because really we were just basically playing on farmland for the last year. Now we're going to have mountains and terrains. There's also going to be things like AI cities is something that's supposed to be coming to the game at some point, which I'm really excited for. And you're going to get more like castle or town sieges at some point too. I think this game will only grow and become better over the next year. And I think if you've taken a break for it, 2025 is going to be time to revisit it and enjoy it again. It's a really, really great game. Now, bonus game number 2 is not exactly medieval, but I think it's close enough that a lot of you guys who love knights and swords and all that stuff will love this game too, and that is Dynasty Warriors Origins. Now, I don't want to show my age too much here, but when I was growing up, there weren't too many games that you could play in an actual medieval melee. So the first game I got that experience from was Dynasty Warriors 2 on, I want to say, the PlayStation 2 way back in the day, and I absolutely loved it. It was epic, but the games haven't really gotten much better since, in my opinion, and there's just other stuff that's occupied my time. I played the Dynasty Warriors Origins beta test, and guys, it is absolutely amazing. Dynasty Warriors is like ancient China, Romance of the Three Kingdoms. I would kind of compare it, the story, it's very fantasy based, kind of like how the King Arthur legends are for Europe. Let's say it's the King Arthur of ancient China, but this game throws you into massive melee fights. I almost said medieval melees, I guess Chinese melees. It's completely fantasy where you're facing and killing hundreds of enemy troops in a battle, and you're also facing legendary like officers who are kind of like boss fights, and they are very difficult. And this is the best Dynasty Warrior game that I have played in probably 15 years. It was really good, and I'm extremely excited for it. I think it's going to be a return for form, or a reinventing itself for that game and that publisher. Now, for my last bonus game, we're going indie, and we're going deep indie. This is a game that no one has really heard about, and I think it should be getting way more hype in the medieval community than it is, and it's called Sorcery, and this is, I know we're going to say it's another medieval extraction game. We've been getting a few of those. But what this basically is similar to Dark and Darker, but with a combat system closer to something like Mortal Online 2, Mordhau, or Chivalry. A lot of people who are big in the melee genre, like myself, I love the game Dark and Darker. I hated the combat. I thought it was terrible. It just felt clunky and low skill to me. I've been looking for a medieval extraction game with high skill melee combat, and this is aiming to be that. The developer's been working on the game, like keeping his head down and working for a few years, and he's super engaging to listen to talk about the game. The game has free tests over on Steam, and it's already a lot further than a lot of games you're going to find in early versions. From when I played it, it felt really good. I also had this developer on my podcast, and the level of thought and complexity that went into gaming with him, it was amazing to hear. This is a game I think has the chance, if the right streamers play it, of kind of blowing up. Because with Chivalry and Mordhau not getting development, the slasher genre, people are going to need something to play and grind out, and I think this could be that game, and it also offers something that we haven't really seen in that extraction game, mixed with a more Mordhau or Chivalry combat. Alright guys, that is it for me. If you made it this far, of course, again, please subscribe guys. Love to all, champ out.